Hi everyone, before we go into the podcast, I just wanted to say thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'm super grateful for your continued loyalty and support. If you could do me a quick favour, if you could give me a review on Apple Podcasts, it really helps the algorithm and it will help this podcast go up the lists. If there are any subjects or topics that you want me to cover, then please do reach out to me on DM on LinkedIn and I will do my best to find the best guest for that subject or topic. This is the Absolute Business Mindset Podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. This podcast will interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and people in their careers. We will delve into the journey to success, key life milestones, and go deep into their area of expertise. This podcast will inspire and educate with great guests. Get ready to learn from others' successes and failures. Today we have Amira Alvarez. Hello, Amira. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing all right. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. So we're just going to go straight into the Unstoppable Woman brand. I think it's fantastic. When I was doing my research, it was super impressive. I love your website, but why don't you tell me what it is and sort of how it was created?
Absolutely. So fundamentally, I work with women entrepreneurs and small business owners, helping them scale their business. That's the mission. That's the impact that we want to help people have in this world. And I have a really strong stance that if you don't know how to create the money that you want to create in this world, you are always going to feel trapped in some fashion. Money is a tool. Money is something that we use to grow our lives and have more and expand more and do our work in this world. It's the currency that we fundamentally use in the Western industrialized world to grow our lives. Yep. And we can have emotional growth and we can have spiritual growth. And that's actually part and parcel in my world of how you grow your income as well. So I integrate freedom, looking at freedom and how to have that from all those different angles.
Yeah, because it's a big part of your setup is making people financially free, isn't it? What would you? I know it sounds a bit of an obvious question, but what is financially free and what tactics, what tools do you use to be able to help people be financially free?
So financially free is different for everyone. It depends on your lifestyle. It depends on what you want to be doing in this world. Personally, my experience of financial freedom had less to do, I know this is shocking, less to do with the amount of money I was making, but had more to do with my ability to create the outcomes that I wanted and not to feel constrained in this world. Now, as you grow into more, right, you grow your life, you grow your business, you have bigger desires. So you want to experience more. Maybe it's a bigger vacation or a bigger house or a second house, or you want to send your kids to a nicer school. There are things that people want. As your want list gets bigger, you need to make more to have a sense of freedom. But fundamentally, I think on the financial side, it's not having to feel constrained when you're making a buying decision. Like, I just wanted to buy what I wanted to buy, right? Like, I just wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do in this world. That felt to me like financial freedom. But then, the nuance under that, Mark, is this idea that if you can be rich and you cannot feel free, okay, because you don't know how to create money, you don't know where it comes from, it feels random, it feels chaotic, you don't have any control over your cash flow, you feel constantly like you're trying to keep up and you're juggling everything. And it feels like a random universe rather than you being at the center of it, being able to call the shots and create what you want whenever you want it. And that's what I love to teach people how to do. Yeah.
So let's talk about growth in a minute. But this is a bit of a trivial question, but I think it's quite fun. So when you became financially free, what's the first thing that you bought materially? Or it could be private educated school, or it could be a holiday. What was it? What was the first thing you bought?
So I'm not going to answer this question the way you want me to answer it, but I'm going to answer it truthfully, which is that I didn't get to feel financially free like after I did the big quantum leap in my revenue and my income. It wasn't like, okay, I got there and let me go buy this thing. Okay.
Right.
It was every step along the way, challenging myself to treat myself a little bit better. And for me, and I think a lot of women might relate to this, and I have a lot of men who listen to my teachings and follow me as well. In the beginning, it was like, can I get a manicure? It was like a really small expenditure. And in my head, I remember pacing back and forth across the street from the nail salon, deciding whether I could, I'm in the US, so it was like $45, which to me was like, am I worth that? Is that frivolous? Can I spend that? I started like thinking about my husband. What would he think if I spent that money? Like, he didn't care. He would be like totally great about it. But it was me not taking personal responsibility for how I treated myself and my own worthiness level. And so it really started with these small micro decisions at a very sort of incremental level. So it was like getting my nails done, buying slightly nicer clothes, going to the hair salon and actually not using box hair color, but getting someone to color my hair. Then it was like flying first class. Then it was having a stylist, right? And it was this incremental, I stretched myself. It didn't feel right or good to me. It felt wrong. It felt frivolous. It felt like I was being, not a good manager of my money. Like, how could you do that? You're not making enough. But every time I spent a little bit more, it challenged me to make more. And I held myself to that higher standard. And I put a demand on myself and my business. And I kept growing that way.
How did you make your quantum leap? You talked about this, and on the research that I found, you got growth very quickly. How did you manage to do that?
Yeah, I went from, my third year in business as a solo entrepreneur. I probably had a VA, but that was really it. As a solo entrepreneur, I was making $138K. And that year, I had this big wake up moment, Mark, where it was like the end of a work day. I think a lot of your listeners will relate to this. As entrepreneurs, we always have that to-do list. Like, it's never freaking ending, right? Yeah. It's like you can't truly get ahead because your ideas just grow and grow and grow, and you want to do more. But anyways, it was at the end of a work day, probably gotten up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and it was probably 7 o'clock at night, and my then husband called upstairs and was like, "Hey babe, come down for dinner. Dinner's ready." And I was like, "Okay, I'll be right there. I'm just going to get one more thing done." Like an hour later, Mark, he's like, "I'm starting." And I felt bad. He didn't guilt me or anything, but it was a wake up moment, right? Like, how can I actually grow my business? There are no more hours in the day. I'm working as hard as I can go. And I had really like one strategy, because I had two strategies. I had the spaghetti strategy, which was throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Okay. Right. And then I had the work hard strategy, and I couldn't work any harder. And I didn't know, like, I knew I could learn the key strategies, but I couldn't work any harder. So that's the framework. That year I studied success. I was like, okay, everyone has the same 24 hours in the day. Richard Branson, Sarah Blakely, Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce, they have the same 24 hours in the day. If they can do it, I can do it. Like, what's different about their approach? And I think that's an important question, because I think the subtext for most people is like that we're somehow faulty or limited, and we don't have what it takes to do it. But if you ask a better question, which is like, if they can do it, I can do it. What are they doing? And you hold yourself to those standards, then you can figure it out. So to answer your specific question, I did 3 things that year. I hired a really high-level mentor that could see from a different level of awareness than I did, because I was in the forest for the trees and I couldn't see what I couldn't see. And I made a promise to myself that I would do everything that I was told to do as quickly as possible, that I wasn't going to second guess or DIY it. I was going to just follow the plan. Let's go. Second thing was I studied success. And in particular, I studied what successful people did. And I studied the universal laws of success, which I now teach in depth. And they help make order out of the chaos that is life and business. And then on a tactical level, Mark, there's only 3 ways. I figured this out for myself. There are only 3 ways to make more money in business. And it's super simple, right? It's raise your prices, sell more quantity, more widgets, right? Or add a new channel of income. And every business strategy fits in one of those 3 categories. So I did number 1 and number 3. I raised my prices and I added a new channel of income. And then, all the other things that you need to learn how to do marketing, you need to learn how to do sales. I had to really work on my mindset, my self-image, that whole bit about worthiness. I had to really feel worthy of making more money. So many women that I work with, so many clients that I have will be like, can I really charge that? Like, is it worth that? Is the value there? And you have to really work on how you see yourself to be able to receive at a higher level.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show. Meet the future of healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe, and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, meet the future of healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
And you say you said earlier that you have a spiritual element and obviously a financial element. So just give me a. So do you do a course? Do you that you help people do, or is it just coaching? Not just coaching, but is it coaching?
I do a number of different things. Our flagship program is called the Spirit of Wealth Mastermind and Masterclass, and it's for women entrepreneurs. It's for people who are just in that liftoff stage, and also up to people who are multi-millionaires. So it works at every level. It's the concept is, how do you create order out of chaos? How do you really change your self-image so that it keeps up with your goals and desires, and that you're constantly on your edge, your stretch edge, and you're going for those bigger goals, that you create those goals because they feel juicy, but you question, like, how am I ever going to make that happen? How is that possible? Like that year that I made the quantum leap, Mark, my goal was to make $1 million. It hooked me. I was in love with that goal. I am not ashamed to say it was a financial goal. I was like, I just want to fricking make $1 million. That sounded really sexy to me. Okay. It sounded really exciting to me, but I had no idea how I was going to make that. The year before I had made 138K. Like, that is a huge leap. How do you grow your business like that? And instead of going, I can't do that, I was like, okay, how can I do that? How can I do that? And that year I went from 138 to 700K. That's a 5 times income growth. And so it required that I pick a stretch goal that seemed impossible. And yes, I want to acknowledge out loud, I did not make $1 million that year, right? That was my goal. I did not make it, okay? However, if I had picked what would have seemed like a reasonable goal, let's go from 138 to 200, right? Right? Like that's a pretty big increase. And I think I could do that. I would have never gotten to 700K. Okay. So this flagship program teaches people how to use this methodology, the universal laws, to really claim those big goals, stay the course, and create at a much higher level. Because there's a way to create that everyone is doing, but they don't understand how it works. And if you can understand how it works, you can apply it to these bigger goals, and then you get these bigger results.
Fantastic. All right, we'll come back to this a little bit later in the podcast. But I'm going to go back to your degree. So I'm going to jump around a little bit. So you did an anthropology degree.
Yes. No one ever asked me about that, Mark. Thank you for asking. It's so far in the past. Like, what does that have to do with anything? But it does, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Tell me about it, and how has it helped in business? So, the 2-part question: what is it? Let's explain to everyone, and has it helped in business?
It absolutely has helped me in business, and I'll tell you exactly how. So it was a degree in cultural anthropology. So there's different aspects of it. This was studying, it was like ethnography. It was studying how different societies and cultures live and work and all that. And my specialty was in medical anthropology, which has no bearing on anything that I do right now. However, my study of cultures gave me a real keen sense that not everyone was the same, right? We have commonalities in these ways, but then we are different. And to use that idea of perspective is very important in business. Like, if you can understand that not everyone has the same perspective as you, and shift the relative view that you use. So law of relativity says nothing is big or small, large or tall or large, tall or short, until you compare it to something else. And that's your perspective. And so if you understand that there are so many different perspectives in life, and then you bring that to business and you go, okay, well, that was an epic fail. Well, compared to what? Okay. That's how you move through. So the brand is the unstoppable woman, because guess what? You're in business. You're going to make mistakes. If you're on your growth edge and you're moving quickly, you're taking risks, there's going to be mistakes, right? There is all the time. But if you look at it and you shame yourself and you guilt yourself, that's one perspective. But if you look at it and you go, what did I learn? What was the lesson here? What am I comparing this to? Comparing this to not having done it at all. Oh, well, I did move the needle, 5 degrees further along. That's progress. That keeps you motivated. That keeps you, I know it sounds a little Pollyannish, but we need to manage our mindset in order to keep acting. Otherwise, it's like 5 days under the cover feeling guilt and shame, and you're not growing your business, you're not making sales, you're not doing podcasts, you're not doing marketing, you're not out there being visible, speaking on stages, whatever your thing is in this world, you're kept from that. So long story short, it taught me a lot about perspective, and it taught me a lot about people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would agree with the cultural reference, because all businesses, all communities, all cultures are based on their cultural unity and what differences as well as the similarities that they make. Okay, fantastic. So then you started your career as a project manager.
You did your research.
I did. And so how did you move from anthropology into project management, which is quite a generic sort of part of business, and you could project manage any area, but how did you move from there to there?
Okay, I'm going to try and make this a short story, but you can ask me as many questions as you want. So when I graduated from UC Berkeley, I was the smarty pants, and I got the great kudos from my professors, and got hired as a research assistant for a position that would be normally for like a graduate student, and I had just finished undergraduate. And I worked that part-time, and I worked in a ethnic arts store, right? Like the anthropology world, right?
Yeah.
And I hated the research position. It was terrible. And I was like, so I quit that job. I was doing this shop girl thing. And I realized that this was in California, that I would be sad if I didn't live out going to New York and living in New York, and like, what if I got married and white picket fence, and like, this was like not lived out. So I quit my job and I moved, and then there was a trip to Berlin, and then I ran out of money, and I was like, okay, I'm coming home, because I didn't want to be a nanny in Berlin. Like, I was in my early 20s. This was like, what were my options there? And so I came back to the Bay Area. I had $70 in my bank account, and I started temping. And I started temping at this software company, and Lori Allen, the head of HR, hired me. She came out to the reception desk and she said, I want you to be our receptionist. Sign this paper. I want to hire you today so that you get stock options. And I had no idea what stock options were. Like, I was like 3 weeks into this job. I'm like, okay. And anyways, I was committed to this company. I loved this company and I grew with this company, and I just kept going up the chain of the ladder, if you will. And I started doing project management within that company, and then consulting and doing it for other software companies. And it just grew from there. And it really, the lesson that I'd love to share with the listeners is that I followed the breadcrumbs of desire. That is one of the things that has served me really well in my life and my business, that I didn't want to stay in that research job, even though it was the right thing to do. It was the right career move. And I followed desire, and it led me where I wanted to go. And it's kept leading me in the right direction. And if you can trust that and act on it, you'll be in a much better place.
It's not a question I ask a lot of my guests, but it sounds to me there's an element of spirituality in yourself, and how the way you described that is that you felt there was not necessarily a calling, but you followed the breadcrumbs that were there. Is there a spiritual element in your life, in your business?
Very, very much so, very strongly. So I didn't grow up with religion. And so I think religion does a number of things. Some people feel very constrained by it, but some people really are served well by it, because it gives a structure for how to make decisions and how to live your life in many ways. But I didn't grow up with that. I had an atheist father, for instance, okay? And he's actually quite spiritual, but he didn't raise us that way, okay? So when I was in that year where I made my big quantum leap, I started studying these spiritual laws of success. And they really helped me understand how the world worked. And there are laws that you learn from a mentor. Like, you can read a book, there's books that you can read, but I spent hours every day reading. Like, it was part of my commitment to myself. But beyond reading and beyond working with the mentor, and the important piece about working with a mentor is that if you just do the reading, you're reading it from your level of awareness that you're currently at, and you won't see things that you will get if you work with a mentor who can explain these kinds of things. And that's one of the things that I do in our podcast, the Unstoppable Woman, is like I work with these spiritual laws and I explain them, and I give this perspective to people. And then what I do is I help people, and I did this for myself as well. How do you apply them? Like the law of relativity, like the law of cause and effect, like the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. There are spiritual laws that are also seen in the natural world, okay? Science can articulate them as well. But one of the biggest laws that, from a spiritual perspective, that I really got and started to live was the law of more life, which says that we're put here on earth to grow, that God, spirit, source, infinite intelligence works through us, through our growth, that it wants to grow through us and serve the world through us, but we have to grow in order for it to work through us. So if we are saying no to our growth, doing the reasonable thing, the practical thing, but not our true desire, we're not actually growing in the right direction. So we all have this spiritual seed that we're born with. It's our spiritual DNA, and it wants to grow.
That's fascinating. I was talking to someone who on my podcast last week, and we were talking about how. So it was a bit of a random. It was the second interview that I did with this guy, and it's a bit more of a random one, which will be out in a couple of weeks. But we were talking about sort of a vibration, sort of feeling that people give off. And he was saying that in the 1950s, there was research being done. Physicists and other scientists were trying to study this idea of resonance and sort of connectivity with other people. And that is what you were talking about there, about growth and about how your aura, and it sounds very similar. And I think there's like where we were saying on the podcast that we don't know where that's gone. Where did all the research that was being done on building that sort of idea of vibration between people and connectivity that you can do with people? And it sounds to me what you're talking about spiritual growth and sort of evolving and sort of changing and adapting is all done through the spirit of God or spirit of the higher meaning. So yeah, that's really interesting. As I say, like this connection idea, I think is really fascinating because you kind of get that with people. You can meet people the first time, and there's a connection there. Sorry, a bit of a ramble, but my question is:
okay.
do you agree with that?
Absolutely. So the law of vibration says that everything in this universe vibrates. Okay. It just does. You might not see it, like this podcast mic. You can't see the cells vibrating, but they are, right? The atoms are vibrating, right? Like there's vibration happening, and everything takes the form at a different vibrational level. Let me say that differently. The frequency at which something vibrates creates the form. Okay. So water vibrates at a particular frequency, and it's water. But if you heat it up, it turns into steam, and we've changed its vibration. So we vibrate at different frequencies. So when as I vibrate at a different frequency than you, everyone's unique, but also, your good days and your bad days, those are different frequencies. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So the law of vibration says that everything in the universe vibrates, and attracts the things at the same vibration. Okay. So there's an idea that's in a vibration as well. Okay. So things vibrate, but ideas vibrate. Okay. So I don't know what your income goal is, but if your income goal is, let's use mine from the past, right? If it was $1 million, having an idea to make $1 million vibrates at a different level than an idea to make 200K or 60K. Okay. It's a different vibrational level. That energy of that idea vibrates at a different level. If you continue to imagine, meaning think about this thing that's an idea that isn't yet in form, but you can imagine it, it puts you at that vibrational level. And then the ways and the means to achieve that idea come to you, because that is what is attracted to that vibrational level. Things are at frequency levels, and everything in the world is connected through these levels of frequency. Nothing is not connected. But if you want to connect to the ways and the means of doing something at a higher level, you have to put yourself there, and you can do this through your imagination.
Amazing. And I suppose that's where visualization and things like that come in as primary roles of being able to sort of imagine what you want to achieve, whatever that goal is, whether it's financial or spiritual. That's so interesting. Thank you very much. So we're going to dot around your career a little bit now. And you then got involved in real estate, in property.
Very, very briefly. That was mostly my ex-husband. I supported him in that and encouraged him in that. And I was a partner signing on the dotted line for the though I did do real estate project management. Maybe that's what you're referring to.
Okay. Yeah.
I ran the operations department of a software company, building out new real estate, office things for them.
Okay.
Office spaces.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going then. And you then were a coach. You were a teacher, and you did business coaching. So I'm a business coach as well. I'm very. So although I am spiritual, I define my coaching very much as business coaching. So I help startups and small businesses build their business. And I'm interested. So as I say, I obviously you get involved in people's personal life to an extent. You need to understand what their values are, what their core is, before you can give them advice on where they want their business to go. But what did you learn as a pure business coach then?
So I think I'm with you. I don't know that I have ever been a pure business coach, right? Like you have to look at the whole person. And in fact, the more I look at the whole person, the easier it is to help them build their business. But fundamentally, when I'm looking at someone's business, I'm looking at where they are now, where they want to be, right? And then I'm looking at the fastest path to getting there. What's the fastest path to cash? Right? To be just really fundamental. Yeah. And how do we, like the Venn diagram, that's the fastest path to cash, but does that fit how they want to show up in their lives, what they want to be doing, the things that light them up? Because if you create a plan that is on paper fantastic, but it isn't anything that someone actually wants to do, you're not going to do it, right? It's just going to create more headaches. So we have to look at what the person's genius work is, what they really like to do, and to approach business that way. And then all the stuff that we've been talking about comes in, right? The spiritual side comes in, and I look at what's stopping them from executing right now. Right. Like what are the subconscious sabotages that are really stopping them from executing right now? And then what are the tactical things? There is a huge component of building a business that's, tactics and strategies. Like what do they actually need to learn and put in place that's going to move the needle for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we've come full loop back to the Unstoppable Woman. And you said earlier, you do work with men, but primarily you work with women. Would you say that women still are disadvantaged in business?
I really don't like to look at that from that perspective, because I think if you stake a claim that I am disadvantaged, then you become disadvantaged. You live that out. I'm pretty sure that the research still says that women make less money, salary rise than men, and that there's all sorts of inequities. But so systemically, I'm sure that exists. Okay, I'm 100% sure that exists systemically. However, in different cultures, women hold a larger percent of, the jobs in different industries. There's all sorts of different ways to look at this. But as an individual, you need to look at it as, what do I want in life? And am I going to go for it? Instead of looking at what are they doing to me? Okay. Take back the agency, take back the ownership, take 100% personal responsibility for your outcomes, and go create what you want to create, instead of looking at the patriarchy, right? That might irritate a lot of people by me saying that. I understand that there's a systemic patriarchy out there that exists. I'm not denying that. But if you really want to grow your life, grow your business, look at yourself and change yourself. That's what's going to make the biggest difference. Unless your purpose in life is to change the patriarchy. If that's your purpose, then let's work. Let's do that. That's your business. That's your work in this world. Okay.
Who are your ideal clients?
Oh, they're really driven, ambitious women. They're kind, they're generous, they're smart, but they've hit some sort of wall. They've hit that limit, and they keep doing that thing that I used to do, which was just push harder. And I want, for the record, to go down saying, like, work ethic is important. Okay, work ethic is important, but you have to be someone who has discernment and knows when to work, go hard, and when to go more with the flow and allow things and be able to receive. So it's women who really want more for themselves, want, like, as maybe pat as it is, like, I grew up in the United States, there's a lot of, like, inspirational thinking, right? You can be anything that you want to be. And I had that. And then I had all the noise that says, no, you can't. And you can't be this and this. And you can only have this and not this. And you can't be smart and beautiful. You can't have a family and a career. You can't be rich and generous, right? Like, all these negative connotations. And so my ideal client is someone who wants it all. And I know that is both triggering and inspiring. And I love to show people how to take that personal responsibility in creating it in all aspects of their lives, because the financial part it's like super important. Like you gotta learn how to create as much money as you want whenever you want it. Like that's an important piece. But along the way, you have to have this great life, because otherwise, what's the point? So,
it's the journey, isn't it? It's not necessarily the destination which you're looking at, which is so important.
Yeah.
Do you teach people how to keep their money? Because there's a definite difference between making money and keeping money. Because you talked about earlier on about scaling people's businesses and building businesses, but if people are successful financially, there is this whole element of keeping their money safe, secure, ready for future generations. Do you help them with that as well?
So I'm not a financial planner. So I have clients who are, and I can recommend people, that understand like the financial tools for that. I will say that I really help people in that scale side of things, that growth side of things. That's like 85% of what I do in terms of if we're looking at this. But the 15% is, how are you treating yourself? And part of that is like, how much money is in your bank account? Does it feel poor and scarce, or do you feel abundant there? And how do you start building? Because entrepreneurs will spend all their money on building their business. Okay, ask me how I know. Okay, and it can be a real trap. Like you keep making more money, but you keep spending more, so you have nothing and you feel poor, even though your standard of living has gone up greatly. How do you start becoming someone, like that identity piece, becoming someone who has a flush bank account, right? Who has savings, who has all the things that make them feel secure. So there's a process for that, but the sort of financial planning, assets and things like that, that's not my specialty at all.
It's absolutely fun, don't worry. So when I was doing the research, it was impressive the different industries that you've helped people in. I haven't jotted them down, but from memory, was there sports, there was medicine, there was doctors, there was all sorts of different types of people that you've worked with. Is it the same process across the board, or do you flex what you teach depending on what their industry is?
I would say yes and no. So fundamentally, the process for achieving your goals faster than you ever thought possible is the same, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of whether you're going for a financial goal or, a health goal or a relationship goal. The process is the same. However, obviously, if I'm talking to a landscape designer versus a lawyer, there might be a different business strategy for them. Or, I work with creatives as well, like with actors, right? That's going to be a different strategy in terms of the tactical steps that you do, but fundamentally the methodology is the same.
And when I was looking on your website, it said that there's tactics that you employ for people to 5x their income in less than a year. Now that's quite a thing. How do you do that?
How do you do that? Well,
how do you do that? Can you please do that for me, please? No,
in 5 minutes, please.
Yeah,
tell me.
But yeah, just tell me around sort of how your approach to be able to do it, because it's quite a thing to be able to do that in less than a year.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm going to do this as succinctly as possible.
Sure.
You have a self-image. It was created when you were very young, under the age of, say, 10, more or less, okay? And you created meaning both about yourself, your self-image, other people, and the way the world worked under the age of 10, and it goes into your subconscious. It becomes a program that runs automatically. The beliefs that you have about yourself are your self-image. If in your subconscious, particularly your self-image, your identity of who you are, tell you what to think about everything that comes into your world, all the opportunities, all the experiences, the news, but also the person saying, hey, you want this business opportunity. Here's an investment you can make in yourself. Do you want to take advantage of it? All of that is coming into your world. You think you're making a conscious choice. Yes, no, that's a good decision for me. That's not a good decision for me. But in fact, Your subconscious is telling you what to think about all those things. Okay. Richard Branson looks at opportunities that come in differently than I do, differently than you do. Okay. And that's based not just on his experience or how much money he's made, but his self-image. Okay. So COVID is a perfect example of this. Many people had financially, their businesses had a hard time. And that was something that was coming in from the outside world. And they had a particular perspective about how to react to it. And it caused a certain kind of reaction. Now, some industries were hit harder than others, and there's all sorts of variables to this. But fundamentally, a person can either look at this as an opportunity or look at this as something happening to them. That's their self-image.
Yeah.
Okay. So to answer your original question, if I can help someone change their identity, change how they see themselves, their self-image, they will look at everything that comes into their world, meaning every single decision that they make, differently. We get different results by taking different actions. We take different actions by making different decisions. Okay? So if we can change that cycle, you start becoming someone who gets different results because you're seeing the world differently, you're making different decisions based on that, you're acting differently, and you're getting different results.
So that whole idea of self-image, I think, is really an important one for most people, because some people can see themselves poor and some people can see themselves rich and or whatever degree, generous or type, whatever. I think that idea of self-image is something that's really important, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Being able to do that in less than a year, your self-image is hugely important for that. Okay, so what's the plan for you in the sort of next 2 to 5 years, or even 10 years? What's the plan?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Mark. I don't know that I can answer it truthfully and honestly with a lot of clarity, but I know in the next 2 to 3 years, 10 years is a stretch for me.
Okay.
2 to 3 years, we're really scaling our Spirit of Wealth Mastermind and Masterclass. It's our flagship program. It's where I help people with just the kinds of things we've been talking about today. You know, that self-image piece, setting stretch goals, staying committed to those stretch goals, staying accountable, not going off course. Really, I love working with women in community. It's not the women who work with me, they're entrepreneurs and they feel isolated at the top, if you will, or their family doesn't get them. And to be able to create a community where you're understood and you're supported, that's very impactful for me and emotionally satisfying for me. So that's the Spirit of Wealth. It's an incredible program to scale that self-image, scale the self-worth, and really help people achieve goals faster. So that's what we're really growing. Yeah.
Okay. Good luck with that. Okay. We're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quickfire questions. They don't need quickfire answers. First one is, what's the best decision that you made?
Hiring my mentor. It was, and I will tell you, it scared the bejeebers out of me, Mark, because it was a 6-figure investment, 6 figures, not multiple 5 figures, but 6 figures. Okay. It was like, and I came home and, my husband didn't talk to me for 3 weeks because he's like, what the hell did you just do? Because I didn't, I was betting the farm pretty much.
Right.
And, but it also gave me a lot of leverage because I wasn't going to lose my marriage over it. And I wasn't going to, not get the return on investment. So that was the best decision. And it started a whole process of really stepping spiritual laws and stepping into my purpose and my truth. So that would be the best decision.
Awesome. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
What's the best piece of advice that I've been given? Be true to yourself. And that sounds a little pat, but there's so much underneath that you have to work through. Like, what is it? Why are we shrinking in this world? Why are we making ourselves small? And what would it take to really own ourselves? And just a little extra aspect to this. The law of compensation says you'll be compensated according to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty in replacing yourself. If you are a full expression of who you are and you're true to yourself, not only will you wake up every day doing what you love, but you are incredibly difficult to replace. No one is you. You're not a commodity anymore. And therefore your compensation goes up as well.
Awesome. I think I already know the answer to this next one. Who's helped you most in your career? Maybe mention someone to give a shout out to someone else that's not your mentor.
Oh, okay. Who's helped me most in my career? Not my mentor. Well, can I give you two?
Of course.
Okay. I'm going to give you three. Oh my God. Okay. My mother and my father for very different reasons. Okay. And that was a surprise answer that popped into my head because they're not necessarily, they haven't been in my business with me, but my father really taught me excellence and persistence and dreaming. And all of that's really required in business. And my mother was a small business owner and was in business for herself. And I think she taught me that sort of, again, that bulldog kind of persistence and determination, keep going, even though she has her own limitations and would never have done what I did. She taught me a lot there. And then the third would be, I have a great business colleague that grew up with me. Like we had parallel business paths, and that she has taught me because she's a different human being. But because we were on the same path, we could like compare notes. And I just received so much reflection and goodness and a different kind of perspective from walking the path with her.
Fantastic. Do you have any regrets?
Nope.
No?
Nope. I mean, I've made a ton of mistakes. Okay. Like don't take that to mean that I have never made mistakes, but I don't believe in regret. Regret means that you're still stuck wishing that you had done it differently. And that's not true because I've learned so much from every single mistake. I would not be able to have my life, run my business, be the person I am. I would be a less good person, right? Like internally, if I was stuck saying I did that wrong instead of learning from that and growing from it.
Awesome. Thank you. What are you most proud of?
Creating my life. Okay. I know that sounds a little like, why am I not proud of someone else or something, less humble, but I grew up a really sort of classic middle-class lifestyle and, family upbringing with all sorts of mental and emotional limitations of like what was okay to be in this world. And I had a lot of emotional constraints, like worry about being rejected, worried about doing it right, feeling limited and trapped and like people were going to reject me. And it was keeping me small. And it's very common. I mean, this is a really common thing. And I can honestly say that although my business is still growing and like I have more growth, like I'm not going to stop growing. I feel so proud of breaking through those internal barriers to self-expression, emotional freedom, feeling good about who I am in this world, and being free. And that came through the journey. It doesn't come from book learning. It comes from really, taking those risks and putting the spiritual laws into practice, testing them out for myself and realizing that they're the truth. And then you get to feel, it's like freedom feels so freaking good,
Amazing. Thank you. What does legacy mean to you?
Yeah, the legacy that I want to leave is really being an incredible teacher for other women who, are smart, hard workers, but feeling trapped in their lives. And I want to leave that methodology. I want to give people that toolkit so that they can, do it initially with me, get that support, but then like run with it. Like being like, if I can help other women and men, because there are men who reach out to me behind the scenes, right? Like to have this level of freedom in their lives, that's what I want. I want as many people as possible to be able to experience this. It's so amazing. I just want.
Do you have a number? This isn't part of the question, but do you have a number of who you want to help?
I don't. Mark, that's been something that I've thought about a lot. You see these mission statements like, I want to help 10 million people do X, Y, and Z by such and such a time, right? And you can feel it when people really own that, and it is something that motivates them. So I've been toying with that, but a number hasn't dropped in for me. But ask me again next year. Maybe I'll have one.
The best answer I've had for that was someone recently that I interviewed he does the financial planning, the wealth creation. And he says it takes 5 years to learn across all different assets to keep yourself a recurring income. And the best answer I got to that question was, so he was, the cultural divide here. He's a supporter of Newcastle Football Club, so soccer, and their stadium is like 55,000 people, 52,000 people. And he said one day in the future, he wants to pack out the whole of the stadium with people that he's helped. And I thought that's so cool. That is such a great way of defining how he's helped people to be able to pack a football stadium.
Totally. But it's such a visual, right?
It's like, it's amazing.
Like you're all in there together. That's awesome. Yeah. No, I love that. I love that.
Okay. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Absolutely. So best place is theunstoppablewoman.com. We have a free stuff page where we have tons of downloads and resources. So theunstoppablewoman.com/free stuff. Our podcast is on all the podcast places under The Unstoppable Woman. And we put out, sample coaching calls. We have lots of mindset teaching. We have tactical things there. So interviews, all sorts of good stuff that you can check out. And then if you're a woman in business, I encourage you to join our free Facebook group called Be Unstoppable. If you search Facebook for Be Unstoppable, you'll be able to join us there. That's where we sort of engage and hang out and talk about stuff. So all of those are the 3 top places. And we're on all the social media channels, so you can find us everywhere.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you, Amira. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Thanks a lot.